Hey, everybody, welcome back to the In Good Hands interviews. And here I have the amazing, the brilliant Dr. Elizabeth Yearth. First of all, Dr. Yearth, thank you for doing this on your busy schedule. I know that you are one of the busiest physicians I know on the planet. So the time here is going to be well spent and it is much appreciated.
Karen, you and I have known each other a very long time, and I would do anything for you. So,
You say that to all your contacts, I'm sure. All right, well, Dr. Yurth, before we begin, I do want everyone to know about her amazing bio. So I'm just going to do a quick read. Dr. Yurth, MD, AVPMR, ABAARM, a bunch of other amazing acronyms that we're going to display for you below. Co-founder, Chief Medical Officer of Boulder Longevity Institute, where she's been putting tomorrow's medicine today for her clients since 2006. Dr. Yearth has obtained her medical degree from the University of Southern California from Keck School of Medicine and completed her residency at the University of California, Irvine, and her fellowships in sports and spine medicine from Stanford affiliated Sports Orthopedics and Rehabilitation in Palo Alto, California. Along with her 30 years as a practicing orthopedist specializing in sports and spine medicine, Dr. Yearth has made it her mission to learn and share the latest scientific research on how to truly heal the body at the cellular level. She has the most experience that I have seen in all the physicians that we have the pleasure of meeting. But really, what I see Dr. Yurth doing more of than anybody else is I see her at every conference with massive note taking, and she is not stopping. Like that is the extent. She is the epitome of never stop learning. There are a lot of people who say that, but she's actually practicing that, and you can see it in the results in her clinic, in her staff, how much her staff like just absolutely loves and supports her. Like I'm a firm believer that your company is only as healthy as your staff, and it's how much does your staff actually believe in the mission you're doing, and she has one of the best. So Dr. Yurth, medical celebrity, one of my absolute favorites, and I have the pleasure of getting to know her very well. And today she's agreed to do this little interview on how she's talking about very difficult things, very new things, things that might sound even against the grain, something very odd even. How does she do all that? Introducing this because she does it so smoothly. How does she do that in her practice, specifically to her patients? And this is from that practitioner's perspective. So, Dr. Yu, thank you so much again for joining. We're gonna take it easy real quick with kind of like a little question on, you know, I know about your immense background, but I think what was like the most surprising thing that I know about you and your history was you have 5 kids and they're all grown up, they're all doing their own thing. And your last
and the last one's still in college, so
oh,
he's not quite yet.
almost there.
So you don't really grow up as a boy till I don't know, maybe you're 30, so they're not there yet. But
I agree with that. That's a big statement, and I 100% agree with that. Your last lecture that I got to listen at was the one at, Restorative Health Center, the Restorative Health Summit, that you went completely 180. I've never seen you speak about something so personal, and my question to you is, all our doctors listening have such busy lives. They have demanding careers. How are you able to manage that and be this incredible mom?
I think the answer to that is number one, I'm not really an incredible mom or manage everything, but I have a lot of really good support systems. And the way I got through raising 5 kids and having a really busy full-time job, and at that point I was in a busy orthopedic practice, it was having family around, right? Which is something that we don't see a lot of anymore, where families are sort of sticking together and supporting each other. But I've really had the most supportive parents who really honestly raised my kids, and I'll give all the credit to how great my kids have to them, not me, because I wasn't around probably as much as they were, and a really supportive husband who helped. And so I think what we have to really look at is, we can do anything if we have enough support system around us. I mean, you just said the way my office works is that I have the best staff in the world. I have people who are as vested in our patients as I am, who take care of each other, who take care of our patients. So what I would tell everybody is find yourself a group of people who are gonna take care of you and you take care of them, and that makes it all work. And that's the only way to make it work.
I love that. I think a lot of our docs try to be everything to everyone and almost spread themselves too thin. But I like that you're kind of saying, hey, it's okay. It's okay to be asking for a little help outside. Well, that's and then, you're also talking about how like, okay, so because I see you at these events, and we're always at a really nice five-star luxury property, and we're always doing nice things, but your way to unwind and vacation, like, I was very surprised to hear it, and I love that about you, is you like to do and go off the grid and do something totally just not in that realm. So, I said, can you speak to that? Why do you like that so much? And
We
where
as a family have kinda started this started really when my youngest is now 18, was 6. We started doing these family vacations, or literally would just pick a country to go to and not we would make our first reservation for, and we usually stay in hostels because there's 7 of us and it's you can get a whole hostel room, right, for 7 people. So we stay in hostels and we would get one night booked, and after that, we would just wing it. We decide where we wanted to go day by day and, have nothing planned. So that has continued, and, we do this every year. We throw backpacks on and we go for 2 to 3 weeks to some foreign country, and we don't map it out really, just sort of generally kind of get okay, we wanna kinda take this route to a country. A lot of times we rent a car so we can just drive through the country, and backpacks on our back, not really anything, loose plans, and just go around, and we'll do everything from, hiking through the jungles and in Belize to, scuba diving, and when you put all 7 of us together, there's always a lot of interesting, both, fun, but also stress, so it teaches you a lot about how to get through things. So I love that. I love that it's the one time when you can all kinda be together and be away from all this noise. And people do these vacations now where they're almost stressful, right? They have so many things planned and so many things, and we just kind of play it by ear. And it's people are like, "Oh my god, I can't even stand this. I couldn't even thought about doing that," right? And somehow it always works. You can always find a place to stay. We've slept on the top of ferry boats, but, um, it's, and, fortunately, so far, this has now been 11 years of doing this, 12 years of doing this. As the family's now getting more grown and probably having relationships of their own and things like that, we'll probably be able to do less of it, but it's been a kind of remarkable experiences for everybody. We always great fun and great learning experiences.
yes, being a planner myself, that seems like the absolute last thing I would do, but I feel like I should try and do the things. Oh, okay, my last little bit about, the intricacies of Doctor Yurth and the many layers, it's like, okay, I still remember it was at the last conference in Miami, and it was at the end of the day, like, maybe closing in on 9 p.m., 10 p.m. I see you and a couple of other of our doctors huddled around Dr. Dayan over his tiny little laptop, and you guys were going over MRI data. This is, like, after a whole day of
Yeah, well,
wearing
it's like
essentially.
corner and to actually sit him down and explain something to you is so valuable. And we have a great picture from that. I wish you had
I have
had
that photo.
oh, yeah, just sitting there like,
Huddled.
fighting on his every word, going through these MRI scans because he's so brilliant, and it's not often you get to just sit down with him. He's all over the place. Um, sit down with him, so we'll take any time we can get. So he's like, "Hey, we can get together like, tonight." And, we're like, "Sure, anytime." And we all just sat in the lobby of this hotel, huddle around his MRI scan, go in detail through this MRI scan with him teaching us, and it is so valuable, right, to get that time with people like this because if you don't know Dr. Goodnow, he's probably one of the most brilliant people, and to be able to just pick his brain for knowledge one on one, is amazing. So yeah, like I said, I love to learn, and I love to learn from amazing people like him. So that's I do I remember as vividly as you do. It was so fun. Picture is so funny.
I have that photo. I think I've shared it with you, in fact, because I took it. It was so funny. So you could
It's like
I know, I think it speaks to the essence of all those doctors in that huddle. But I think I want to kind of start there. Everyone is so busy, whether you're a doctor, whether you're doing something else in your career, so busy. They feel almost to the point where at the evening they're burnt out. But you are still going strong. What are some of the things that you do for the all day brain energy, even just having energy to do that?
So number one, like I'm not a particularly social person, so that's more my haven is to be in these little groups, kind of learning and talking about things than put me in a big party situation. I'm not so good in those big party situations, so my energy is well spent when I'm in these little groups of people talking. So if you would see me at 9 o'clock at night at a big dinner party, I wouldn't have been doing so well, because that social behavior is always a little bit harder for me. But so one of the things, honestly, is I have a pretty regimented schedule. As much as like when we talked about, I'm not planned. I have a pretty regimented schedule in my life. I get up early in the morning. I exercise. That kind of gets my day going. I drink a lot of ketones during the day, which keeps me really kind of alert, functioning as well. So ketones have been sort of a huge focus for me to kind of keep going in energy. But for me, honestly, what gets me sort of piped up and going is my exercise in the morning, and then I just so gig out on this learning stuff that if you put me in this situation, I'm gonna be able to stay pretty alert through it, right? Like I said, if it would have been a dinner party with 50 people, you would have seen me like that.
So we just caught you in your making.
Situation.
Okay,
Everybody
okay.
knows.
Well,
Everybody knows
it
knows I'm
makes
a
me
little
feel better.
social.
I love that, and I love poking fun at how
Handle the social.
you have a little bit
Social situation
rest.
home. That no much.
Oh, that's awesome, Doggy. It's fantastic. Well, I love that you're not even like you're so brave about it, right? You're not hiding behind it. Like, yeah, that's not my scene. This is my scene. That's why you saw me on. Uh, Honest, I love it. All right. Well, Dr. Yet, the part of this conversation is to talk about how you, in particular, are talking about plasmalogens, foreign word to basically the world. So you practice medicine across several disciplines, several specializations. What is it about plasmalogens at first part your curiosity, and then how do you talk about it for the first time?
So let's just, kind of first remind people that plasmalogens are these, really they're specialized phospholipid. They're the protective membrane molecules. So they are sort of the shield to your cells, especially neurons, mitochondria. So whenever there's oxidative stress, something inflammatory going on, this is your first line of defense, right? So when your plasmalogens drop, your resilience drops. You can't heal, you can't recover. So that's why they are such a critical player. And I can't remember. I mean, can you also remind me when we first met Dr. Goodenow, right? I mean, how many years ago was that now? And none of us
5 years.
5 or 6 years ago, right? None of us knew what plasmalogens were. And so and then all of a sudden, like, "Oh my god. Well, no wonder there's things we can't get better because we're missing an entire building block that we've just never known about." It was like this mind-blowing thing that we're replacing these hormones, or we're replacing these peptides, or we're replacing these nutrients in people, and yet this main structure that makes up our cell membranes that helps us to heal, recover, regenerate, we knew nothing about. So it was this mind-blowing thing, right? That, oh my God, well, this is obviously huge. Because my belief in medicine is if you replace kind of everything that's dropping or lacking, right? That we should be able to keep the body pretty healthy. We feed it the right things, we do the right things. We don't have to do a lot of big magical things, but we have to give it back what it's losing. And if we aren't replacing those simple building blocks, and I'll put things like hormones in there, then we're not gonna be able to get somebody to recover. So plasmalogens are a big key piece. And in my mind, you can't get somebody better who has low plasmalogens without them. And I will say, now having done a lot of prodrome scans to look at plasmalogen levels, a lot of people, I will venture to say most people, have some plasmalogen deficiencies going on. And so you're doing all this stuff, and then you're like, "Ah, why can't I get them 100%? Right? Why can't I get them healed?" It's because they were missing one of the huge building blocks, right? It'd be like, I'm trying to build my house, but I have no bricks at all. And like, I try to use wood and I'm trying to use everything else, but I don't have the mainstay structure. So, it was really sort of mind blowing that we've been missing years, right? That's only 5 years ago. So for 20 plus years of practice, I've been missing this really big piece that was, stabilizing neural membranes, was calming microglia, was supporting the mitochondria, was modulating inflammation. So we were missing this whole upstream lever for everything, you know?
Kind of all the things that you were already working on fixing.
Right, working on doing, but missing the big structure piece of it, right? I could throw hormones on somebody and help a lot, but not if they don't have plasmalogens also to help remyelinating nerves, right? Then all the estrogen in the world is not gonna help them.
That's it is this foundational thing, and I've known to say that now to practitioners who then they take that and they kind of understand it a little more. Now, so I think I know the answer to this question, but just to be like very overtly, obvious about it, how do plasmalogens fit in your overall philosophy of your how you're treating somebody and making someone feel better?
So my entire practice now is really giving the body the raw materials it needs to repair itself, right? So, instead of saying we've got all these fancy things that people are using, if I think if you have most of the raw materials in place, that you can get people better, most people better without having to throw in a lot of big magical, fancy things into there. So when the entire practice is built on giving back the raw materials, I have to say plasmalogens have to be foundational to that. Because they're so involved in that mitochondria function, they're so involved in myelin integrity, immune system balance, neurotransmitter function. So if I don't fix that layer, then what am I doing? So I now in so like all of our most of our my new clients or all my foundational health clients get a prodrome scan, so I actually know what their plasmalogen levels are because you know I will tell you there's a lot of people who are walking around, they're like, "Well, I don't feel badly," but their plasmalogen levels are no low. So when we practice what we consider preventative medicine, how can we do that if we're not replacing the mainstay structure? I mean, the literature is pretty robust now about plasmalogens and how important they are. So I started saying, okay, this is something I'm gonna have to put in as a sort of baseline product. Maybe at a low level in some people, maybe at a higher level in some people. So we actually started testing more, just like we're testing hormones and we're testing micronutrients. We're actually testing plasmalogen levels as a baseline test in people. And if they're low, replacing them just like we're replacing the hormones, just like we're replacing the micronutrients that are missing. You know, in some people who don't wanna, do extra testing, if they're feeling perfectly well, then will I say we have to get plasmalogen testing? No, but I will tell them that we could try this other stuff. I still think that a few plasmalogens put into your especially if they're over 50, right? That a few plasmalogens are gonna help you in the baseline. But I would recommend, honestly, to practitioners, if you guys are doing a test, like, like my practice where people are coming in and we're getting a lot of baseline tests now. We're doing cardiometabolic testing, we're doing thyroid testing, we're doing hormone testing, we're looking at, ITF levels, and we're looking at all the micronutrients. Why wouldn't I also have the components of the cell membrane in there as a piece?
Ah, I find that so interesting coming from you because I feel like you know about all the new sexy things, all the new sexy tools that are happening in medicine. You're at the forefront of that. And still what you want to come back to is this raw materials idea. And
Right, right.
love
That's good people, doesn't it? That, if I do not have the raw materials there, I can't build a house.
it makes
No, I can't make my house all fancy because I don't even have the building blocks. So, I will tell you most of my patients end up on plasmalogens.
That's music to our ears, that's for sure. And so I feel like a lot of, another, hurdle that our practitioners have to deal with is pivoting towards something that feels so new. It's criticized as being an expensive fish oil, right? But, like, what convinced you and what helps you to, like, make people see the light in this incredible foundational thing?
Well, certainly, I base a lot of what I do on research science, and the research science is there. So if you guys start just going and looking at plasmalogen deficiencies in disease, you will see that it is linked to a whole lot of diseases, particularly neurodegenerative diseases, right? So we have the scientific data to back these things. It's not like they're just some magical thing. Dr. Goodenow just came up with them and said they work, right? We know that plasmalogens are, in people who have have neurodegeneration, cognitive decline. They have lower plasmalogen levels. People who don't have cognitive decline have higher plasmalogen levels. We know that immune people have higher immune health have higher plasmalogen levels. So we absolutely have the science to back it. I think it's funny to me that people are very willing to jump on very expensive things that are new and fancy, including things like peptides or buying huge red lights or hyperbaric oxygen chambers. And those are all hugely beneficial, right? But why are they, to me, maybe it's because it's too basic. It's like, okay, this is just a supplement. Why do I need this? We're spending this money on these high-end things that are not going to work when we don't have this baseline thing in there. So it's funny to me that people complain about the price of this, and yet they're sometimes willing to spend a lot of money on more elaborate things that are coming out there that, that don't have nearly as much science behind them.
Maybe because it's so easy to get, right? You just go on a website like an e-com store and you buy it. Maybe that's the perception, right?
Well, I mean, yeah, it's funny. I mean, well, it's also because we need to get the influencers talking because unfortunately people are learning from the influencers, right? And so this doesn't have the big draw, and we need to probably, I hate to say it, but and I wish this was not so. I wish that the physicians were educating more, the people who understood this stuff well were educating more. But unfortunately, the influencers are still educating people, and it's a lot more big and fun to have some big fancy new supplement or some big fancy new device that they're paying an influencer uh, $20,000 to market, and everybody thinks this is the best thing. So, this is not some big flashy thing. Dr. Goodnow's not putting a whole lot of money into paying influencers to market it. He's trusting that the physicians learn the science, that we understand it, that we explain it to people, that we start utilizing it. People see the benefits of it, and they start telling their friends and telling their friends, which really, in my mind, is how things should be done. Is work through the science and not through the big flashing glamour of great influencers. But you're right, they're just not big and fancy enough. And people are like, "Well, they're expensive, and it's just another supplement." Uh, but I think if people could understand that this is again, I should just think of it as a baseline absolute need in your body. Just like you need, uh, you know, any nutrients, like you
The protein.
right, can't survive without adequate levels of coenzyme Q10. Why do we think we could survive without adequate levels of plasmalogens? We can't. Can't survive healthily, at least.
Right, right. Well, I love that, and I think that's gonna be extremely helpful, and the fact that you just said that there's so much science behind it, I think it goes without that I don't think I say that enough. Like, there's so much research behind it, so thank you for
It's
your
not I mean, Dr. Goodnow's research. He has a lot of research out there, but guys, if you just go start, do a search on plasmalogens and different diseases, and it is all over the place. Some of it even very old literature. I mean, this is not something new. It's been around for a while. We're getting more and more recognizing of it, and we're seeing more and more. But we're seeing there's a lot of data out there. So if you don't believe in these things, go research. I mean, that's what I do. When something new comes out, I go and look for the science. And when there's a lot of science to support it, you're like, okay, well, this makes sense. And then you start utilizing it, and then you start seeing, wow, it really makes sense because I'm actually getting people better who I couldn't get better before. So I listen. So the way I do everything that I adopt that's new is to hear about it from hopefully somebody who's very knowledgeable at it, right? And teaches me a lot, but I never trust them completely. It's just my nature. So then I go and I spend hours researching it and go, okay, wow, this actually looks pretty good. And then I adopt it into my practice. Actually, the night I usually take it myself. And then I adopt it into my practice. And then I see what happens. Because there are some things that the research looks great on. And the researcher who learned about it tells me it's great. And yet not seeing the results in practice, right? For whatever reason. So, so that's kind of my stepwise approach, And then when I see, wow, this is really working for people, then really adopting it full force.
Now, what are some of the cool results that you've seen? Let's talk about that.
You know, uh, So many. Yeah, I actually was just talking to a patient yesterday who she's a violinist, and she had developed a pretty bad tremor. So she actually, and this is her job, right? This is what she does. It's to the point where she couldn't do her bow. So it was an intentional tremor. She couldn't do her bow anymore. And the neurologist had put her on all the meds, and nothing had really helped. And she's thinking about deep brain stimulation, but they said it wasn't the tremor that was going to be that response to that. So we put on plasmalogens and it didn't really help. And then I went full force. I go, listen, I want you to just full bore, high dose these plasmalogens. And she messaged me. She was like, "Oh my god! I mean, the tremor is pretty much God. I mean, So we went full bore. I said, I know it's expensive. I just want you to go all out on this, right?" And and she went to her neurologist, who said it's all placebo. Um, you know,
Okay.
since she goes, "Well, why wasn't your drug a placebo?" Uh, and then another guy who's actually a race car driver who, you know, he had some head injuries, um, and he really was not able to drive very well. He's kind of an amateur race car driver, but enjoyed it. And he couldn't, his reflexes weren't good enough anymore to do it. He said, I'm dangerous anymore. I can't do it. So we put him on plasmalogens. He didn't need quite as much as she did, but he was like, oh my God, my reflexes are so much better. Everything's back. So when you look at even like people like this, where, and we could talk all day about the big neurodegenerative people too, like our Parkinson's patients who improve so dramatically, our neurocognitive people. But a lot of it's people who are, dealing with such just simple little declines that we kind of attribute to, well, that's just what happens when we get old, is where our reflexes decline, our nervous systems aren't as good, our hearing declines, all these kinds of things. That those are people still who those are all related to plasmalogen deficiencies. Ringing in the ear, um, tinnitus. My husband has really bad tinnitus, and he started doing high dose plasmalogens. It went away. When he stopped them, it came back. When he went back on them, it went away. These are all neuro declines related to this alteration in the lipid membranes. And so I think that, when you listen to doctors talk about big fancy cases and all these Parkinson's, and things like that, that's great. But most of what we're dealing with, our life are people like us, right? Or just they're like me, you're young still, but people like me who are just getting older and see these little losses that you're like, okay, well, it's just sucks, but I'm getting older. Can we actually prevent and reverse those? I think yes.
And so there's a lot of great stories that are the company has been filming with the neurodegenerative cases, but specifically, I'm curious to know if you've seen any like almost personality or emotional changes in your patients, because that seems to be the most surprising anytime we come across them.
I think it's a very neurosettling, right? I mean, I don't have a lot of what if you look at some of our doctors who work with a lot of the autism patients in business, they've had incredible results with the autism patients. I don't have a lot of autism patients in my practice. Not really my practice, it's a little bit higher level, uh, but the if I look at people who are just, uh, who feel like just more emotionally labile, who are kind of just moody or more irritable, we definitely see improvement in that. Just this think about nervous system is with fault. I loved one time Data described one of his best traits is describing things with analogies, and he said, think about like all of your wiring, right? That everything is all your wiring. If you have copper wirings in your house, right, and it's all got this nice insulation on it, so that when electricity runs through it, everything goes smoothly. And now take off that copper insulation, right? So now you had a hurricane, and then it was bad weather, and the insulation came off the copper wiring. And think what happens when that electricity runs through it, right? It's sparking out, it's doing all these things. Same time in our neurons. Well, we have these neurons that have this really nice protective myelin sheath on them, and everything goes nice and smooth until you take it off. And now everything is firing a lie and creating these weird sort of, more irritability, more moodiness, when you think about that, these are sort of settling back down that nervous system. You have to think it helps with all those sort of behavioral things we start to feel. Even that kind of just irritability you get as you get older, that little bit more, less tolerance to things. I think that proves people are just. If you look at Dr. Goodnight's probably the most level, stable person in the world, right? It's like nothing ever rattles him. I'm like, it's got to be because it takes so much intelligence, right?
Oh, absolutely, and he does a bottle a day now. It's I think you're absolutely right, though. I used to be a very irritable person.
I just got and I think that analogy of thinking about this wire will, firing off with all these sparks and things, right? It makes perfect sense. If I re-insulate my wiring, it just works better. So you kind of think about plasmalogens in two ways: is it's sort of re-insulating the wiring and then turning back on the electricity. And so you want to get the insulation back and then turn back on the electricity. Both those things together are what make us function better. But I think that that loss of, sort of just that kind of more, or even just more ADD-ish where you can't really focus well. If you think about that same thing that my message is not going through the wiring to the right place, it's just going here and there and everything that I can't focus. I can't, I can't learn very well. So I think all those things improve.
Well, that is I think we all need more of that. So yeah, that's right. I need to hear from as many people, but
Right? I mean, you have to say is the world just because there's too much coming at us. It's also probably because we have a lot more insults that are damaging things like plasmalogens. We have a lot more oxidative stress. We have a lot more illnesses and viruses and chronic viruses and vaccines and things like that that are damaging the structures.
mhm. And so how are the observational, evidence of this being very effective for your patients and your practice is there. Are you measuring it objectively through labs or anything? What are some of the big changes that you've seen there?
So certainly reductions. So it's a few things you look at when you're looking at I will repeat prodrome scans, right? Because that's a really definitive number look at what's going on with the phospholipid membrane, right? So I can really say, okay, now look at repairing phospholipid membrane. But even before that, because I won't prodrome scan, I won't do every 3 months, obviously. So even before that, what can you see? And there's a few things. Number one is you'll see inflammatory markers drop, right? So we'll see the C-reactive protein drop, which is just that reduction in inflammation in people once you get plasmalogen levels normalized. The other thing that you'll see is when you look at sort of subtle markers of things that are telling us there's energy loss or energy deficiencies, one of which is things like uric acid. So if uric acid gets very, very low, those are energy deficiency states. Those are states where my mitochondria are not working well. So if I can help my mitochondria to repair, plasmalogens being a piece of that because they help make up that mitochondrial membrane, that then I'm going to see improvements in things like uric acid going from a 3, which is, people say, well, yes, uric acid can be too high. That's bad, but so is too low. That's a low energy state. So I see improvements in uric acid levels, normalizing uric acid levels. Also, normalization of triglycerides. People say, okay, low triglycerides is great. Too low triglycerides is a low energy state. And it means you're having lipid metabolism issues. So I see triglycerides normalize, right? We'll actually see high triglycerides come down and low triglycerides come up. We'll see it homeostasis. And that's because I normalized lipid metabolism, right? So when triglycerides are disruptions in glucose and lipid metabolism. So we could see that normalize. And then the last thing I always look at that's just simple little things that you could look at is improvements in things like kidney function will improve, and then immune function. Now I use little sort of tricks to look at immune function. For instance, you can look at just a ratio of neutrophils to lymphocytes, and when a perfect ratio is 1.5 to 1, and when the immune system's gone a mess, you'll see that lymphocytes drop a lot. So when we get plasmalogen levels up, you'll see that immune system improve as well. So really, again, what you see from this hitting so many places, it's because it's an essential piece of our health, right? So, so it's hitting, we're seeing improvements in immune function, certainly improvements in inflammation, improvements in mitochondrial function. Those are all things you could actually look at, just very basic labs. In best worlds, I love to get my prodrome scans because now I can say, okay, look, I've got this really good, but we still need to work on this. So I do still love that, that's a tool I can get on people.
That's fantastic. You basically hit all the major big cellular systems that the plasmologist hit. I love that. And you were energy. You're saying so much. Like I'm trying to take down all the notes, Dr. Yearth, but I have to like speak hearing you speak about these labs. It just reminds me of sometimes I see you on the boards, our community boards, and someone has just posted up their program scan, and you give them like 5-page notes on this is what's going on with this patient. Like you will actually do that regardless of how busy you are. I don't even know how you have the time for that, but like that I I'm sure it was like that person's best day ever, but like I love that you do that though, doc. Like you are not afraid to give an opinion and then share it. Like a lot of people safeguard that information. So I really like that. I just
But really, so, and I probably don't do as much as I should because, if people just say, "Oh, look at this program scan," I probably don't have time to go look through everybody's program scan. But when somebody says something that I'm like, "Oh my god, this is so wrong," like, and that's what, like in this case, like we said, it was like this person was very disturbed because this is their new program scan, and they have all these worries about the plasmalogens made up worse. Then you have to intervene, right? When you see people are actually spreading sort of wrong news, then it's really important to intervene. Uh, and so I really am passionate that we have to be careful about sometimes propagating wrong information, right? That happens when you get in these forums and things. You'll see, wrong information get propagated, and that's where it's, our jobs as the elite practitioners, as people who are using these things, as people who have been studying them for a long time, to intervene on those things, is to stop that propagation of wrong information. And you see it a lot, right? You see it in everything, but whenever people are skeptical, wrong information gets propagated. We have to be really careful about that.
and you turned it around real quick. You stopped it dead in the tracks. And I hear Dr. Dan talking about this all the time. In cases of very severe stage 4 cancer, you will see high levels of plasmalogens, and he explains it very well. It's the first line of defense.
Right, right.
Yeah, so what you're saying, it makes
Make that mistake a lot, right? That we see something go up and we blame it for cancers, and that's not the case, right? There's lots of examples of that, like in the peptide world too, that we have to be careful with correlation versus causation in these things, and I think there's probably, I mean, nothing that I could think of that plasmalogens make worse. You know?
let that let that big statement just kind of settle in. I love that you mentioned peptides and you mentioned exosomes earlier in our conversation, but love to know, like, how are you combining these other things, and have you particularly found something that works really well with what you're doing on that base level, foundational level? Like, what do you like most in terms of combination?
I think that when you look at peptides, right? Uh, And I just got this question. I was just talking to Karen earlier about this, but this question from a practitioner who said, "So I have a patient who has cognitive decline. I want to use cerebral lysis. Cerebral lysis is a great. It's actually a multi-peptide structure, but it's great for neurocognition and neural repair." And he said, "So I think I'm going to do IV cerebral lysis on him, and then we'll go through a course of that, and then I'll start him on plasmalogens." And I said, that's backwards thinking. I'm not gonna get cerebrolysin to repair the brain if I have no plasmalogens, right? It's impossible. I have to have plasmalogen structure normalized. So usually I'm gonna start with plasmalogens. I'm gonna start with making sure hormones are optimized, plasmalogen levels are optimized, and nutrient levels are optimized. Then we pull in the peptides because there's things that I definitely gonna need more. For instance, let's say I have somebody who has severe mitochondrial problems. We're seeing this with long COVID. Uh, you know, so so if I'm gonna and mitochondria need plasmalogens, so I need to get the plasmalogens back up to par. But you also need what's called cardiolipin in mitochondria. And cardiolipin is what kind of makes the inner mitochondrial membrane nice and curved, and that's really important to create energy. You have to have that shape to the inner mitochondrial membrane. Plasmalogens aren't going to fix that. So that's where if I have a lot of mitochondrial damage, I'm going to pull in something that actually helps repair that inner mitochondrial membrane. So I'll pull in a peptide that might repair the mitochondrial membrane. So then that's where I'll take next steps. Or maybe I need to now the plasmalogens are fixed, but I just got to kick that mitochondria into gear. And that's why I use something like Mod SC, to help restore that. So that's where, once you've got the structure down, right? So now that my race car, is everything's primed to go. Now I can add, the super charged engine and a supercharged gas. But first I have to have just good wheels, good, good. I don't know, maybe got
Right.
stars, whatever. Um, so that's I think where the mistake people make.
No.
They're not, and then we wonder why we don't get as good responses from things is because we're still missing the big base piece. So start with replacing the very base structures first. Plasmalogens being one of them. Peptides come in next level, and I use a lot of peptides, right? And again, maybe I have somebody who has normal plasmalogens. I don't see them much, but I do. You might have somebody who's younger who just had an injury, then you might just go to peptides. But but I would tell you that most of your patients are gonna at least benefit from starting them with some plasmalogens, from make sure their hormones are optimized, and then adding all these fun peptides in place. And I think you're fooling yourself to think that you can actually fix somebody without fixing that first.
That's resounding. I love that. And so anything else that you're super excited about right now that I hate that we're always like so interested in what's new in medicine, but it is fun to discuss. And I wonder if there's anything that is very exciting for you.
I think I'm right now, I've been doing this medicine for a long time. And, it's like that lecture I gave at Moose Jaws, is looking at purpose. I'm getting a little bit that we do have to go back and focus a little bit on helping ourselves and our clients with purpose and mindset. We actually added into our clinic a mindset portion, right? So, because realize that we couldn't get people healthy who just couldn't see themselves healthy. And so we actually hired a person to develop a mindset coaching program to help people sort of see themselves in a different way. To help, how do I actually train myself to think of myself as a healthy person? And so I'm really actually excited at what we can do now with using more, you know, brain and mindset to actually change health. Obviously, giving the people what they need, but why do you have all these people that you're like, oh my God, everything looks good on this person? Why do they still not feel good? So we have to go back and see where are things missing. And that's where I think being able to focus a little bit more on mindset, be able to focus on purpose. I mean, I have this patient who, she's retired. She has nothing to live for or get up for every day. She sits till noon, and I was like, just, you know, uh, get a dog, do something that gives you some purpose. So I'm really focused a little bit on what we can do of changing people a more brain structure, and we have to sort of back off all these big fancy things and go back to how can we just heal ourselves a little bit with the proper mindset. So I am excited about that because I think that if we can really focus on that, I think that there's so much that you could do just with your own brain. I mean, we know that, right? You could think yourself cured, and we have to go get people to train on that.
Yeah, talk about a placebo effect. Like we're gonna make this
Yours, right? Right? I mean,
to science. Yeah. Oh, love that.
that really also I'm studying a lot of quantum right now. I have a son who's a quantum computer guy, and so I started studying quantum biology because I think that that whole piece of there's so much cool stuff going on in our cells that are energy related. So how can we use things to just change energy and change these quantum forces? So I think what we're going to be looking at a lot is too is how can we actually use just external things to change energy forces and quantum mechanics within our cell. That's where we're gonna see kind of this next big step of medicine is kind of
So freaking cool. Oh, I love that. Oh my gosh, that lecture at Moose Jaw, folks, we're gonna try to link it out for you, but
just look at like we spend so much time and energy on all these things,
yeah.
and the biggest predictor of whether you're gonna be live to the next day is do I have some reason to live to the next day? Nobody focuses on it.
What's that reason for you, doc? Such a personal question.
No, kind of so many reasons. I want to see, so my biggest purpose is that I really feel like I'm pretty good at educating, and I really want to kind of be out there in the world and, the sort of be able to get rid of the noise and the fluff and try and bring the people back down into the basics of what are sort of these essential things that we need to be focusing on. There's so much, you go to these lectures at conferences, and there's so much information coming in. How can we actually simplify things down? How can we do these approaches in a more simplified approach that is really helpful to people? So, one of my purposes is to really, education and try to teach. I love it. I love learning. I love studying. I love reading. So every day, I mean, to me, I don't have enough days, right? It's like, give me more days. I can use things where I can, actually teach people, hopefully learn more, and then digest in a form. I think that's where I'm good is digest into a form where I can then relate it back to people in a form that they can understand. So that's kind of my passion. I mean, my family is a huge purpose to me too. You know, I'm very close to my all my kids, and so they create a huge purpose for me too. I want to see them continue to grow up into amazing people.
This is this is the side of Dr. Yurth. There's many, many sides to everybody, but I've loved how you started letting us take a peek into those other sides of you, doc. Because at first it was very much like, "Whoa, she is a super smart doctor." And then there's all these other little facets of it, and I'm loving it. So thank you.
Try to think that my advantage is I'm not super smart, and so I can read this stuff and then spend a whole lot of time trying to digest it down into stupidity. Well, we used to say that, back when we won't mention right now, but that we could take this complex information and I would like, well, this makes no sense to me. So I try and make sense of it. So I think being a little stupid helps you to take this complex information and digest it down into a stupider version that we can all understand.
I'll take it. I will take it. And I think all of us want the stupid version. Like that's what we take and
I don't
understand.
know. People sometimes now don't. They don't like the simplified version. They like that.
He does make really good analogies, so
As they knowledge. He's his best. Yeah.
oh, well, I love that. Okay, so I have an oddball question, and was there any sort of like, is there a piece of advice that you would give somebody that they need to hear, even if it's uncomfortable about their health? Anything that comes to mind that would be, oh, it's tough to have this conversation, but we need to have this conversation kind of deal. Is there something like that in your practice?
I think the biggest thing you always hear is I'm not going to do any of this stuff. It's so expensive. And and then I watch people get in their car and drive away in their $50,000, $70,000, $80,000 car, and they've got their $8,000 TV, and they walk in with their Starbucks, which is now $10, right, every single day. And I get really frustrated by that because it really is not that this stuff is so expensive, it's where our priorities lie. And I think our conversation is look at your life and where your priorities lie because you're spending a whole lot of money on your Starbucks and you're going out to dinner, your bottle of wine, your car, your TV, and then saying this stuff is too expensive. So I think that people really have to rethink that paradigm. It bugs the heck out of me because I have so many people that I think I could make better, and it's gonna cost a little bit of money to do it, and yet I know they are spending money, even the people who don't have a whole lot of money. You don't need a whole lot of money. We need a few basic things, but you have to prioritize your money to the right places, and we don't do that, right? We still want the fun, exciting things in life, and I think that that's the hardest conversation you have to have with people is that, figure out that this is where you need to spend your money.
Yeah. Oh, that's gonna, I think, make so many physicians feel seen and heard.
Right.
That's wonderful. Oh, the Starbucks. I can't with the
No,
Starbucks.
I can't go there anymore. It's like literally, I went there recently. It was, when in full force in the art, but when it was literally, a grande almond milk latte with extra shot was $9.
I love this about you, Dr. Yearth. You are so cheap, and I love every bit of it. Like I tried to get Dr. Yearth to invest in a really good pair of Italian shoes because I'm a firm believer that you need one pair of shoes for the rest of your life. If you're gonna buy it, make sure it's a good pair. And she would not do it.
Yeah, Karen, you have that meal. I am spending more money on good clothes, and
Good.
right. It's like you have taught me that, right? Like there's guys who don't know. I've asked Kara to dress me now, um, you know, because she's very style conscious and she knows all this stuff. Sometimes still can't stomach the prices of things, but I have changed my attitude a lot about that. A few good, expensive, good things, right?
Just a few, and they last a lifetime, and you'll wear it all the time, and it'll be worth every penny. But yeah, with the Starbucks, no, 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 not
Right, right.
that's so silly. So what's like a big health myth that you've seen circulating that you wish would just disappear?
I think the probably the biggest thing is that we need 1.5 billion supplements. We really don't. I mean, we're seeing people now with, every if you listen to every Instagram influencer, you are on 150 supplements, right? And you really don't need that. You need some, and you need some very basic things. And that's where I think people need to focus it down on. Okay, what are these very basic things that I need? And so I think we need to get rid of this sort of myth that, more is better and how can we refine this down to a few things that are going to go a long way? Because we really do have this agile. I have people come in with a 50-page list of things they're doing, and we need to refine that down. So I think that we need to simplify our lives, get out of that more is better approach. We need to be able to kind of, focus more on the good things in life and a few basic things that are, like plasmalogens that are gonna keep us healthy. But, because you need a few basic supplements. You need your hormones replaced, you need plasmalogens, and then you need people and happiness and love and nature and those things, and not just more and more supplements.
Yeah, not the new sexy thing. Yeah, I like that. Stop the chasing.
Right.
It's already here. Yeah. This question just popped in my head. If you weren't a doctor, what would you want to be? What's the next best thing?
Gosh, I wanted to be a doctor forever.
Oh no, I know you were telling me about that. Everybody.
I was a little kid, and it's funny because I was raised in a family where we never saw a doctor. My dad should have been a doctor, but he wasn't. But we never saw doctors, never went to the doctor. Um, I remember my twin sister once we were riding bikes. She broke her ankle. It took my dad about 3 days to admit she needed to go to the doctor. She was like crawling around the house. It was just not his nature. So he was very anti-doctor, and he lived to be. My mom lived to be 97. He lived to be 94. So it served him well, probably not seeing doctors, but so it was odd that I wanted to be a doctor. But really since I was a little kid, I always wanted to be a doctor. So it's hard for me to switch over to that. What else I would think about doing? Maybe it would be to like live in a castle and be a princess, but other than that, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
It's like honestly, I honestly can't think of home.
Wow, this is your destiny. Like you're one of the
That's
very lucky.
cash. I'm a
This is.
like when I was in high school, I went and worked in the nursing home. I was like,
Oh my
it's just been like what I will, for some reason, it's been ingrained in me. So, and like I said, now I've sort of changed my approach to be now I want to be a little bit more of an educator in that realm, right?
yeah, yeah. Oh, I love that. All right. Well, the Princess Yurth. uh, is there something that you used to believe like early in your medical days that you no longer believe, and why the switch?
Man, yeah, I came from orthopedics, right? So I truly believed we could fix people. You throw a hammer or a nail into something, or throw some steroids into something. I truly believed for a long time because I practiced orthopedics for 30 years that we could just fix people. And then I started to realize, wow, I am not fixing anybody. I'm ultimately just still, patching them back together and then patching them back together, and they just keep declining, declining, declining. And that's what sort of turned me from what I was doing to say, how do I actually make people healthy instead of stopping, how do I put them back into this is just a healthy whole person and not so I completely went from, this approach of because orthopedics is the ultimate you come in with this and we fix this, right? And then it took about 20 years of doing that where I was like, I am really not fixing anybody. And that sort of realization was hard to come by. And then I had started looking for, okay, how do I actually, you know? And so then I combined the two of, okay, I'll make people healthy. Well, I fix this. And then I started going more into, okay, I bet I could actually fix people and not get have their joints wear out and everything if I could keep them healthier. So yeah, so that was a big turnaround from that. Just we could fix this to no can't. Have to do a lot more work.
That must have been a huge paradigm
Right.
shift.
Right.
That
Because that's what you spend your whole life doing, right?
right, right.
Then you're this person who could just, oh yeah, we can fix that.
And you're still fixing, you're still doing the orthopedic sports
I'm
right?
doing a lot of I'm still doing a lot of research stuff on people, right? But I'm doing it in a combination with making sure that we can actually keep that from just degrading over time.
Nice, nice. I love that. Well, Dr. Girth, you said so many important and uplifting things this afternoon. I can't wait for everyone to listen to this because it's gonna not only bring a lot of comfort but smiles to people's faces. Like this is a super tough profession that our doctors are in, our practitioners are doing, and it's only going to get more difficult as AI and everything else. The world is going to basically eat us all up. So we need all the help we can get, and we need the brains to be able to do it. Dr. Good, thank you for sharing all this information. You are so generous with it, and we're so lucky to have you.
Thank you, Karen.